This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, so welcome to the City Council Ordinance Committee meeting of July 14th, 5:30 p.m. We have Councilor Peak and our new member, Councilor Riley. We don't have any minutes to approve right now because I need to get in touch with Lindsay to see if she has some of our older minutes. We did have some people for public speak time, but I let them know that we were not going to be discussing the CPC ordinance tonight. So, welcome. We just started.
I'm just being asked.
Oh, okay.
There's going to be any public speak.
Well, it is public speak right now, but generally public speak is for things that are not on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
So if you were here to speak about the CPC, we're not discussing that tonight. Okay. It's being sent to the solicitor,
all right,
and we're going to wait for him to send it back to us before we deliberate.
Legal have a look first.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Very welcome. So we did have some people here that were interested in that piece, and I just let them know what I just said, which is it's going to be, we're going to send it to the solicitor. Let him take a look at it, and then we'll get it back and we'll deliberate it from there. Because I think the solicitor had some things that he wanted to potentially add or clarify.
I think that's a really good idea.
It's a good
because,
idea.
frankly, in content-wise, I had no real objection to the previous draft, and so
right.
If there's any sort of question that we have, I think most of the questions are about the fact that the solicitor has some concerns.
Yeah.
So I don't really have anything to say until I fully understand
know what the concerns
of the solicitor are.
Exactly. So that's kind of where we're at with that one. I did want to have a little bit of a reorganization since we lost Lindsay, and I thought that Brad could potentially be a good fit for the clerk. If you feel so inclined, and if you want to do a full organization, like if you want to chair.
Oh, no. My goal for this year was to serve on the two busy committees and not chair either. And also, if you don't mind, because I am clerking for finance, which is
right.
kind of a lot of work
that's
because we meet multiple times a month and the meetings are very long and whatever.
That's why I figured that Brad would be a good mix for this, and we'll support you in any way if you feel comfortable with that. We'll support you however you need it.
Yeah, I've been a transcriptionist for years. So
okay.
I'm literally live.
Awesome.
Right now, so.
Okay. And so, I did check with Barbara to make sure since it wasn't on our agenda, but we are allowed to do reorganization.
Okay, cool.
Without it being, and she was fine with that. So, I'd entertain a motion to nominate Councilor Riley as the clerk.
So moved.
Okay, I'll second it, and we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, since we're all here?
Aye.
Aye, okay, perfect. So welcome and thank you. And hello.
Hi.
Are you here for any particular reason?
I just wanted to observe just the process of what happens in my town.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Is that okay?
I just wanted to make sure that you had, like, full disclosure. There were some people here, they wanted to hear about a specific ordinance.
Yes.
Which we're not talking about tonight.
Right, that's
so
fine.
that's been sent to the city attorney.
That's
so
fine.
Yeah. So we're just catching our new member up.
Okay.
So
great. You're the new member?
yeah.
Yes, new to the committee. Yeah.
New to the committee because we had a counselor resign a few weeks ago.
Which counselor resigned?
Lindsay Rothschild.
Okay.
Yep. And so now we have a new counselor, Dave Munier, which then forced some reorganization within the committees.
Okay.
So I'm now taking Lindsay's spot
great.
on this committee.
And I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Councilor Riley.
Hi, Councilor Riley.
Yes. So basically, now that you're our clerk, appreciate that. I wanted to make sure that you knew kind of where we were on the other items that are on the agenda. I don't see this going super late, so. So number one, we've been working on the vacant storefront ordinance.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've heard anything about that, but we've worked, so the Easthampton Industrial Commission and the EDIC put together a ordinance that they basically felt would help address some of the buildings in the city that have been chronically underused. Some examples would be like the Hurry and Scurry, Moriarty and Moriarty, some of the empty storefronts on Main Street. And so what they did was they went around the Commonwealth into other states and looked for best practices around managing how to deal with these vacant storefronts that, for, as in the presentation they gave us, told us basically, what it does is that having vacant storefronts in the city really hurts economic development. It hurts the kind of vibrancy of the city. It can hurt, the viability of downtown. So it's something that we've been working on. Now, we went through a few meetings with them. We kind of workshopped our version. We changed fee structures, and I feel like we're in a pretty good place, actually, because we worked on it for a while.
Right.
The one linchpin here is the building commissioner.
Right.
Okay.
So, do you mind if I?
No, go, please, jump in,
Right.
please.
I think the one area where we had some outstanding questions was about enforcement. For example, like, if a place becomes vacant, how does somebody become informed that it's vacant, and how does that process play out? And so one of the questions we really wanted to ask there was, since the building commissioner would be the person that ultimately enforces this, we wanted their feedback about how that all plays out. We have a new building commissioner, and we have an enormous backlog of nonsense that was never looked at. And it's actually funny because in the midst of all this, one of my friends had the building commissioner come over to look at her house because she was doing something with her garage, and I guess they're familiar with one another through something or other, and she was going on about how
busy.
it's just basically we just didn't have a building commissioner over COVID.
Right.
And so there's just like this huge backlog of stuff. So we've had a lot of trouble scheduling a meeting.
Yes, I mean, to the point where multiple emails, and they're so busy that I haven't even gotten a response yet. So I've reached out to Omar because Omar has a relationship, and so and really the reason why the building commissioner is so critical for this is because they're the enforcement agent.
Right, right.
And so for us to pass a law without even checking with the enforcement agent
Right.
makes no sense whatsoever.
And it's also something that's gotten us in trouble in the past, where we've brought something forward, and then the board that would be, enforcing it comes in as like, hey, so we actually looked this over, and there'd be all these issues, like, how would we determine this, or blah blah blah. This is something that we're probably going to have to look at with that other thing. It's just like, how does this all play out? So, we're just kind of in a holding pattern.
But the cool thing about it is, part of the ordinance would be, as Tom said, is kind of like a clearinghouse where if someone was interested in finding a space in Easthampton, all the vacant properties would be kind of listed on the city website, with their contact information, so people could find a way to come here and revitalize some of the properties and it would also, because of the fine structure, it's not. So the fine structure isn't actually a fine, it's a registration fee. So you would pay a registration fee to get on the registry, and then you have to pay that yearly. And then if you are kind of habitually not trying to find someone to fill the space, then there are some kind of the escalating fines that kind of come through. And if the space is blighted or dangerous, those get doubled.
Right.
So, basically what it does is it keeps property owners on the lookout for someone to fill the space.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we are with that. Do you know if I sent you? I feel like I might have sent you a draft of that, but if I haven't, I will. And you don't have to know off the top of your head.
Yeah,
either.
I feel like.
I'll just resend it.
Yeah, it'd probably be best.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's probably come through before, but there's so many emails.
Yep, and so that's a really big one that kind of is on our docket in a holding pattern.
Okay.
And so the next one is the Ordinance Review Committee, which Tom was on. Basically went through the entire ordinance, the book of ordinances, and went through with a lens of a few different lenses actually.
Right.
Go for it, Tom.
We're supposed to do this every 10 years. We generally don't. But we decided to do it a little bit early, just with the George Floyd murder and everything that was going on. There was a lot of culture people say like, well, we need to look at ourselves, and so there was this sort of thought of like, well, let's look at our own ordinances and see how those are affecting things. So there was definitely a lens of sort of social justice when we looked at it. Fundamentally, we didn't find a ton of stuff in there that would really be that. I mean, there certainly is some language that is a little outdated, and whatever. But for the most part, what we did find was a bunch of very old ordinances that are not enforced at all anymore,
Okay.
and that we wouldn't even want them enforced.
Okay.
And just weird things about like no leaving dead farm animals in the street. We were like, okay, I guess that is true, but could we maybe make this more broad, because I don't think that is a thing that actually happens that much.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're actually like done
Yeah.
with that. What that committee was there to do was not to actually recommend changes. It was just to flag problems
Okay.
and then send it back to the council. So this committee met a few months back
Yep.
and went over all of that feedback and sort of went, okay, so this is the problem. And 70-80% of the time, the problem was solved by just striking the
Yeah.
ordinance.
Okay.
But in a few cases, it was, like there's a lot of cases where it's talking about the powers of the mayor, and it keeps using like
Him.
strictly masculine pronouns.
Oh,
So it's
okay,
like,
okay.
all right, well let's, we've had 2 women mayors at this point. We should
Right.
probably just use gender neutral.
Two of the 3.
Yeah, 2 of the 3
have been women,
Yeah.
so.
66% of our mayors. So it was like, all right, so let's update that, and then there was just some functional stuff where like, okay, in the Council on Aging, we've always been treating it like a 3-year term.
Okay.
The ordinance does not actually actually dictate a term at all. So, like, there was some things like that where we just brought it into practice, or
Okay.
there were things where it's like, okay, there was a ordinance about hunting inside city limits, and the police were just like, well, there's really a state law that is what we enforce here, so you can just get rid of this, and
Right.
we'll
Okay.
this will still get enforced, but there's really, so anyway, we went through all of that and we created, there's like 17 amendments, something like that, to maybe more, I don't know.
It was more, I think.
It was more.
Well, if you don't count the pronoun.
Let's
change.
call the pronouns as one.
One.
So then
There was probably around
there was
17.
something like, I don't know, 15 to 20
Yeah.
amendments. But as we were getting it done, Barb was just like, hey, we don't have, we're out of legal budget for the rest of the fiscal year, so can
Okay.
you just sit on this for like a month or 2? Well, yeah. So,
Yeah. And so I talked to Barb on Wednesday. What's today? Thursday? Tuesday. And now that we're in the new fiscal year, she said that she has been thinking about it, and she thinks she has a strategy, because the challenge for her is advertising all of these changes, because ordinances need to be advertised. And so what she's going to do is she's going to advertise it by chapter, and then say that it's all in file with the city clerk, and she's going to put it on the web, and it's going to be on the
Okay.
website. So
Okay.
she figured it out. So she said that she is going to, so we should be able to set a public hearing for this at the next meeting, for the first or second meeting in September, whatever Omar thinks is
Okay.
better.
Okay.
And it's gonna be, it's a bulk, we have the pronouns, there's probably 50 pronoun changes,
Right.
just to make them non-gendered,
Yeah.
so that's like a big one. And then we have all the other ones that Tom was talking about. So that one's, now there is one final piece to that kind of, I haven't removed this from our agenda yet. And the reason for that is there are still a couple that are a little bit more detailed
Mhm.
and require a little bit more thought.
Okay.
And so, and this is something that we'll leave it on the agenda, because what we can do is we can strategize a little bit, looking at the ones that are left and saying, okay, how do we want to approach this? We'll have a little bit of a discussion about that approach, but then we'll resubmit it to the committee when we decide the angle that we're gonna,
Okay.
so that way we can deal with some of the bigger ones that, there's only a handful of them.
There's only a handful, but there are ones that are like, okay, this actually requires a little bit of thought, and it could have not major implications, but implications. I think one of them was about I think we all agreed that our current tag sale structure is bad.
Okay.
It's the amount of administrative work that goes into it is not
For the
even
$5
close to
fee
covered
or-
by the fee, and so there's well, do we just stop requiring a fee and you can just have a tag sale if you want it?
Okay.
It's not like this whole thing's a money loop. We'd be saving the city money by just not overseeing this process and letting people have tag sales.
Okay.
But there might be some people who are like, oh, well, I have some neighbor that would have a tag sale
Every
every
day.
single weekend, and I don't want that. And so maybe there's a conversation there. I don't know. Like, so it's like on those ones
Yeah.
where like it's like, well, we should probably actually have like an individual conversation about these items.
Yep,
Right.
makes sense.
So we're gonna leave that on, and then we'll kind of probably each meeting we'll take a look at one
Okay.
and just say, hey, like, what do we need to do? And that way, once we have kind of a plan, then we can resubmit it to the committee, so it's its own item, so that way it
Okay.
gets advertised properly and everybody's aware of it. But we, you know, it's still kind of within our purview to say, hey, do we want to do the tag sale one now, or do we want to do this one, right?
Right.
So it just gives us, and it also keeps us on. It keeps us kind of keeps it on our radar.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would definitely be like, oh, what tag sales? I
Yeah.
forgot about that.
So-
And there's no obligation for us to get all of these done this
No.
term either.
No, no, no.
I'd like to, but like,
Yeah.
Okay.
if there's just other, I mean, we're going to be dealing with all sorts of other things, and
Yeah.
like some of these are things that have been a standing problem for 40 years. So, like,
Another few months.
if it goes another 2 years, like that's not ideal,
Yeah.
but it hasn't like destroyed the city yet,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So is there a central document that where all of these edits are that I could have access to just to?
So I have it all in Google Docs. Generally, what I'll do is I'll share those with. I've already shared them with Tom.
Mhm.
I'll share them with you as well.
Okay.
So that way we have like within the Google sphere, you know, as long as we're not deliberating there,
Right.
but it's
Right.
us being able to see it.
Yep.
View
Look
it,
at it.
don't edit it. Though,
Right.
Yeah.
because-
Unless
for
you
me.
can edit if you make a copy and save it as its own version.
Okay.
Right, but
You know.
but don't like if you throw edits and we start editing each other's edits,
Yeah,
that
that's-
becomes deliberation.
that's-
As I'm
yeah.
sure you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
have caught that
Yeah.
at this point.
Yep.
And so then the last one is the request from the mayor to establish this is a new item.
Right.
And I just want to, I'm gonna read this to you guys because I don't know if Barbara included you on this, but she had, I don't know if you, Tom probably knows a little bit, but
I actually have no idea.
no, but so maybe 8 years ago, we spent at least a year and a half doing a sign ordinance, and this table was filled every single meeting with stakeholders from around Easthampton, and it was contentious at times, and it was a lot of compromise, and it was a beast. And now it's a lot of it
entire
is
thing has been
kind of
unconstitutional.
is unconstitutional because
Ah.
I mean we did a lot of time, place, manner, but like just at the time it was before the Supreme Court ruled over the content of signs. So
Okay.
anyway, it's still on the books, and there are still parts of it that are enforceable. And so this is Barbara sent me this. Oh no, she sent it to you too. it looks
I
like.
did, yeah. I
Yeah,
received it.
and it is actually a decent way to look at this particular issue, which is, having a process through which signs can be placed. So in this case, flags
Mhm.
on public property. So, and I think that what was happening, this was sparked by something that happened in Boston.
Mhm.
And I think there was, some white nationalist groups that wanted to raise their flag
Right.
alongside like the Tibetan flag and, the other, the pride flag and some other
Sure,
thing.
sure.
And they, so then it became a court battle. And so what this does is it allows us to have a process and a vetting through a mechanism in the city that will allow for, these things to happen in a way that isn't just a free-for-all
Right.
and is not exclusionary necessarily, but also doesn't,
Okay.
so that's kind of, and what Barbara's thought was, since we have the sign ordinance that basically talks about this, she says, rather than reinvent the wheel, it might be that the zoning ordinance could be amended to address the mayor's request from last night's meeting. The ordinance committee would bring the zoning amendment proposal back to the full council, where it could then be referred to the planning board for a joint public hearing. So, basically, I would say this is something that since the CPC thing's probably not going to be back to us for a couple of meetings,
Okay.
this is something that I think if we can the vacant storefront is something, if we can get the building commissioner, then we can move forward with that. But this is something that we can kind of dig our teeth into, I think. Obviously, we don't have to do anything with this tonight, but I think that this could be a good approach, which is looking at amending our sign ordinance to include the mayor's concerns and basically have adding a banner, any temporary sign of lightweight fabric or similar material that's mounted to 2 or more edges. That's the definition.
Right. So it's not just a flagpole. It's
right.
Anywhere.
It's anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I'm still wrapping my head around this whole thing, but I think that broadly that seems like an attractive first way to take a shot at it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we run into problems and have to reevaluate, then fine.
So be it.
But that seems smart.
Yeah,
I like
think
that.
it seems reasonable, and it gives us a good starting point, so we can dig into it with something already established, right?
Right.
So I think that is a good place for us to talk about next meeting, so we can get start on this. Now, just be aware, summertime. Me in the summertime, it's like catching a greased up eel. Let's be real.
You're an outdoor active guy.
Well, plus I'm all over the place.
And you
so.
sports and.
But yeah, so I'm next. So that being said, next week, I'm gone for the whole week until the following Monday because we have nationals for basketball. But I think let me just see. And that's that, and then I'm gone again. So it looks like August for me.
Okay.
And we have a meeting on August 3rd. And you have finance on August 10th, right?
Yeah. So Wednesdays are generally bad for me.
I know that.
And Thursdays are generally great for me.
Okay.
And Mondays and Tuesdays are okay, but there might be conflicts depending on the Monday or Tuesday.
Would Thursday, August 4th be,
Yeah, sure.
how about you, Brad? Is the August 4th? It's the day after our city council meeting. It's a Thursday.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
beautiful. And 5:30 work for you guys, or 6?
yes.
Either's good. I mean,
It's Thursday.
6 is better, but 5:30 is fine.
I'm fine to do 6 if that works better for you.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, Brad?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I had to think for a second because appointment committees are now Thursdays in August, but it's the other.
It's
Thursday.
the opposite of the
Yes.
city council meeting.
Yeah.
So at that one we can take a look. We can start taking a look at the flag, and hopefully by then, we'll have something from the building commissioner.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That's only one person, correct?
it's only one person.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's why it's so tough. That's why it's been months,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All of our one-person departments. Are
It's-
like,
Yeah.
What are you gonna do if things get busy?
Yeah, exactly. So, do you have any questions?
No, not really. I mean, just
Do you feel sufficiently caught up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Once once I get access to the
I'm gonna
Google
send
Drive,
it.
I'll just start to familiarize myself with everything, so that way, when we're ready to dive into things, I'll at least
I'm going to share all
have an
that
idea
with you
what
right
I'm
now.
talking about.
I'm going to share. I have it right here.
Okay.
So, okay, Brad. And other than that, I think that we're probably in a good place to get a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfecto. Thank you, gentlemen.
So the whole thing about the ordinance is over?
Didn't happen yet.
It's still with the lawyer,
Yeah,
so
it's-
we don't really have anything to talk about until we
Okay.
get comments back.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna get comments back from the lawyer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is the city
When will
attorney?
that
Is
be,
that
do you
correct?
know?
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.